In this video, we will show you how to plant a stunning perennial garden. Perennial plants are a great addition to any garden because they come back year after year, saving you time and effort in planting. Follow along as we guide you through the process of selecting the right plants, preparing the soil, and properly planting and caring for your perennials. Get ready to create a beautiful and low-maintenance garden that will bring you joy for seasons to come. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more gardening tips and tricks just like this one. This is the flower bed we're going to use today as an example on how to plant your perennial garden. Step one is planning out your garden bed, okay? So this doesn't have to be anything fancy. All I did here is I roughed it in, I sketched it, okay? Now, ideally, you would get the dimensions and roughly have it in scale. So for example, if this is 6 feet, that's basically 6 feet. This is basically 20 feet. I kind of rough in the shape. The first step is thinking about this from big to small, all right? So in this bed, I wanna make sure that I have one big feature, which in this case, I'm thinking is a rhododendron. And I'm gonna put that rhododendron right here, okay? Now, one of the things you're gonna do is you're gonna look how big a rhododendron gets. In this case, my rhododendron gets about 4 feet. So I'm roughly drawing this about 4 feet in proportion to the size, all right? So that's my big thing. I'm gonna say my feature in the bed is the rhododendron. Some people might say it's a river birch, or it's a seven suns tree. It's some sort of a tree or some sort of a service-berry bush. But at any rate, I have a feature. I have the main attraction. Next, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna say, all right, I want a few azaleas or something else that's sort of a medium height, and I'm gonna kind of populate those around this like that. Then I'm gonna come through and say, well, I've got the azaleas here, they're medium size. I also would love some grasses. So maybe I come through and I add some grasses, all right? So I'm gonna add more or less those grasses, all right? Then, those are my medium sizes. Now the other thing I've got in this bed is I've got a generator right here. So I do want to kind of rough that in. So that's my generator. Next, I want to go ahead and look at the stuff that's low lying, okay? So the smaller things. This could be anything. This could be hostas. This could be anything that works well in your particular bed. Now the other thing to keep in mind is I'm really thinking about where this is in my yard and if my house is blocking it. In this case, this is the north side of the house, okay? So that means I don't get as much sun. Now, if I was on the south side, I'd be able to do all kinds of crazy grasses and things that really desire the sun. But in this case, I'm on the shaded side of the house. So I really have to kind of go towards things like rhododendrons, like azaleas. Even the grasses that I selected are shade-based, partially sun-based grasses. The next thing I want to look at is the low stuff. So the low things I'm going to put in front of the bigger things, all right? So I'm going to go through, and these could be anything. Again, it's more just kind of filling that space, but it's starting from big. It's starting from big to medium to small. These low-lying plants are going to be coral bells. The coral bells are a great plant. They like partial sun. They grow low. They're very hardy, and they're also deer resistant. Deer don't seem to eat them. So I've got my 3 different sizes. I've got my main feature in here. Now what I can do is I can make a list of the items that I need to go to the plant store with. It's very important to have a list, because without a list, you're going to go in there and go crazy. Do your research on exactly what you want based on where it is on the house, what type of sun it's getting, what kind of drainage it's getting. Do the research on the plants. It's very important. And then you go and start laying it out in the garden. Okay, so after you select the plants, what I love to do is I grab them, and I stick them into their locations that I have planned. So here you can see they're in all the different spots. I move them around and I kind of just start to think through it from different angles, how it looks, if it's doing the right thing visually, and also making sure there's enough space around each plant, thinking 2, 3, 5 years away. You know, how big is that plant going to get? I'm really thinking about the heights. I'm thinking about the types of plants. I want to make sure visually it's got interesting texture. The next step after the layout is to go through and start planting everything. Okay guys, so the first step here, whenever you're planting a bush, a tree, a perennial, really anything, I kind of follow a few basic steps. The first thing I'm going to show you today is how to plant this azalea. This guy's nicely grown. He's really pretty far along. My bed's been prepared. It's already been mulched. So I'm just going to peel the mulch back like this. Kind of get that out of the way so I can reuse it. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to dig the hole. I like to just use a little trowel like this, a hammer, whatever. My dirt's pretty loose, so I can tear it up like that. I dig a hole that's roughly the size of the pot, more or less. A little bit bigger is good. Sometimes, I like to have a couple inches at least around it, just to be on the safe side in terms of getting some good stuff up around it. So check and see where we're at height-wise. Now this is important. I want to make sure that the top of the plant is, 2 inches, probably 2.5 inches up above the surface of the mulch. I like it to be a little bit above everything so it doesn't rot out. Very important. Sometimes people plant them way too low, and over time they settle in, and then the roots, the bases will actually rot. So you want to keep them up just slightly. The other thing you want to look at is which side you have, facing which side. You ideally would have the good side facing towards whatever you want people to see. So that's probably about like that. And then I always empty the plant kind of over the hole and get all the fertilizer and stuff that's already in there like that. And then I use a good quality fertilizer. Now I use an organic fertilizer because I live by the lake, but just a little starter fertilizer, root stimulator. I just will throw a little bit around, typically into the bottom of the hole. Not a lot, but some, just to give it a jump start. And then the other thing I use is peat moss, and I'll throw a couple things of peat moss in there, especially for these plants. The azaleas like to be a little drier and drained, so I like to kind of get some of that in there. I'll mix that in. I'll take some of the dirt that I dug up, kind of mix that all together into like a nice kind of a mix. Put this guy in the hole, check his height. He's a little high, so then I pull a little of that dirt out of there, set them in. The other thing I like to do is kind of break up the roots just a little bit, just to loosen it so they can grow. Sometimes they're root bound coming out of the store. So take a look at the height again. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna take a little more of this peat moss and throw it around the base. Some good stuff in there. And then you really kind of sit it in there. You want to pack it in. You don't want to go too crazy, but you want to make sure it's in. And then all you do is you come back through, pack the dirt a little bit up around the base. I throw a little more peat moss, maybe even a touch of fertilizer. Just like that. He looks pretty seated. He's straight. Get a good look at him, make sure he looks good. And then the final step is to come in with some of your mulch and just kind of finish it off with the mulch. And you can kind of see he's a little bit mounded up. That's pretty much the general gist of planting a bush, tree, perennial. That's the basic, depending on whatever plant it is. So next step is to go ahead and plant all the rest of these. So it's the same process, just repeated. So let's get to work. Okay, now we're all planted. So the next step is going through and giving everything a good water. So I go through with my sprayer and I just soak the base of each plant really good, because this is a nice way to seat the roots in. But yeah, just a nice solid watering of each plant, just to make sure that it is thoroughly watered. And there you have it, a beautiful perennial garden. By following these steps and giving your plants the care they need, you can create a garden that will continue to bloom and bring joy year after year. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and smash the like. Thanks again for joining. Happy gardening.